Hey everyone, John Weber here, and you'll notice that things look a little different than usual. I'm not wearing my usual sweatshirt. I'm wearing a shirt that kind of looks like it. You didn't hear the regular music in the beginning. You didn't hear my usual opening because I got swamped with work or ran out of time again, and I don't have a regular episode of The Punchline. However, it's always been an unspoken rule of mine that even if I can't give you a regular episode, I'm going to give you something. And that's what this is, and I hope you enjoy it. If you've ever watched the Spoony one, or Noah Antweiler on his videos and on his website, he has a series called Counter Monkey. And what he does on Counter Monkey is he talks about his old adventures and stories when he would play tabletop RPGs. And I have a story that I think kind of works for Counter Monkey. If he's interested in it, I'll send it off to him, and I hope he likes it. But this is not a tabletop RPG story. This isn't D&D or Shadowrun or Pathfinder or Spycraft or Call of Cthulhu or anything like that. This is actually a role-playing story that happened to me and my friends while we were playing Minecraft together. And I'm going to presume that most of you out there know what Minecraft is, but just in case you don't, I'll give you a brief run-through real quick. Minecraft is essentially a virtual Lego game. You create a new world, and it's a big, beautiful, sprawling natural landscape with lakes and trees and hills and mountains and underground caves and a completely untouched world. Now you can pretty much do whatever you want in it to build things. You can dig up dirt and chop down wood and dig up stones. You can rearrange your stone into bricks and your wood into planks and fences and doors and make windows and build whatever you want out of it. So people have made some truly amazing things in Minecraft, ranging from tiny little shacks to underground cities to sprawling fantasy cities like Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings. And I've even seen pictures of some people who have made 2-scale replicas of things like the Enterprise or the Death Star. But Minecraft is sort of a low-tech game. You're not going to be making, rifles in it, or cars, or computers, or things like that. You can make sort of complicated machinery by using something called redstone, which is sort of like electric wiring. But you can use it to power like 1 or 2 devices that will like make a music note or something. So you can like make a doorbell. You push a button and it sends a signal on, and it makes a little sound on the note block, or plays music in a jukebox or something like that. But it's sort of a low-tech sort of game. So you can, one of the most advanced, actually the only 2 weapons you can make are a sword, and all you can do with the sword is just sort of swing it back and forth. There's no complicated counter-attacking or finishing blows. This isn't something like red steel or anything. And a bow and arrow. You can just, point and shoot with the bow and arrow. But it's sort of a fantasy setting because you can take these things and enchant them. You can make potions. So you could sort of say that Minecraft is a fantasy game, because there are also like monsters like zombies and skeletons that appear at night and you have to fight them. And so what my friends and I were doing is my friend Hunting for Aces, that's his screen name, is he created a new server and said, hey, I just created a new server, it's got room for 4 people on it. It's kind of a small server, but that's all we could really afford. It's got room for 4 people. You want to get in on the action and join our server? And I said, absolutely, yeah, sure. And so I got on the server, and it's a beautiful, untouched landscape. It's sort of like there are a lot of pine trees around, and we actually spawned in not too far from a coastline. So there was some beautiful beaches there. There were snow-capped trees. And a pretty decent flat area not far from the shoreline. And so I said, okay, I'm not really that good at building at Minecraft at that point, but I want to kind of do something new and something impressive and exciting where people will go, wow, that's actually pretty cool. Good work, John. And so I said, well, what's visually impressive? What looks cool? How about a skyscraper? And I said, but I didn't want to just build a skyscraper that doesn't have a purpose to it. I want everything I make to have a point to it. So I said, okay, well, what could I make that's a skyscraper? What would a skyscraper building be? How about like a hotel? People come to hotels all the time, and hotels are big. Well, no, actually, let's not do a hotel, because hotel's sort of like a modern day thing. It's not really sort of a fantasy thing. if people were going to be, you know, staying somewhere outside their homes in Lord of the Rings, they'd be staying at an inn or a tavern or something like that, and those are maybe 2 or 3 stories tall. So let's not do a hotel. But what's a big building from medieval times? Well, there's a castle, but castles aren't really towers. There's mages' towers, I guess, and like Merlin's tower or something. But there's not really magic in regular Minecraft, which is what we were using. You can't like call down thunderbolts or shoot fireballs or stuff like that. So what about something like Hogwarts? But instead of like that sounds cool, but instead of a big sprawling campus like Hogwarts, which has like 6 or 7 buildings and the big field where the kids play Quidditch or whatever, let's just make a school that's just one tower. It's just the school that's just one tower big, and each floor of the school serves its own unique purpose. And I said, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to get to work on that. And I was able to get to work on it really quickly because we were in creative mode. And in creative mode, you don't have to go and like dig up your stone to make your stuff. You can just, boop, there it is. It's right in your hand. You can just have whatever you want in your hand, which was good for me because I was building all my stuff out of sandstone. And to get enough sand to make all the sandstone that I made when building my tower, I would have leveled and destroyed entire deserts. I would have been a one-man walking ecological disaster. But in creative mode, I can just go, I want a bunch of sandstone, and there's a bunch of sandstone. I'm going to use as much of it as I want and never run out of it. So what I wound up making was about 11 or 12 stories tall, and I called it the Heroes Academy, which is no relation to the iPod game because that game hadn't come out yet. But what each floor of the Heroes Academy was, I'm going to show you the list and show you some images of everything I did. The first floor, which was actually kind of a basement, was the lobby. It had some like nice chairs and a rule book, which we never actually got around to writing. The second floor was an elementary classroom, which had like a podium for the professor to stand in and some diagrams on the walls and desks for all the students, or chairs for all the students. The third floor, I had dorms for the students to stay in, and they were like really tiny little cramped things. I mean, there was barely standing room for one in there. There was room to stand up, a room for a nightstand, and a bed. That was all the room there was. But they had windows, so they could get nice views of everything, and that makes up for it, right? And then across in the dorms, there were also showers, and these showers actually worked. You could push a button and water would fall on you, and you could push it was a switch actually. You could flip the switch again, and the water would stop. And I was kind of proud of that at the time because that was the most advanced piece of machinery that I had made. So I had working showers, like a dorm would have. So this place was actually kind of starting to come together and had a place and a purpose for everything. Above that floor, I had a library where students could study because it's a school. You got to have a library. And in the library, there was also an alchemy lab so students could practice making potions, and an enchanting table so students could practice enchanting their stuff. Above that, we have the cafeteria and a balcony. And the cafeteria actually wound up looking really good because we had vines that were draping down, and we had a balcony which overlooked some of the surrounding landscape, and you could actually watch the sunset from the balcony, which looked really cool. And I like to imagine it was kind of like a little romantic spot for our characters in game. And I just thought all the tables looked really good, and I also put flower boxes around the entire edge of the cafeteria, which was a nice touch, I thought. Above that, there was a sparring room, so if students wanted to practice fighting each other with their swords, the walls were padded with wool, sort of like a martial arts dojo or something like that. So there was that. Above the sparring room, we had another dorm, some more showers, another dorm, an advanced classroom for advanced classes like enchanting or alchemy, because I'm a terrible alchemist, I admit. I have no clue what I'm doing with potions. If some of you want to throw advice at me, you can. There's no guarantee I'll be able to follow it or make use of it at all, but we did have the advanced classroom. And then above the advanced classroom, what I did is I made the entire tower was basically just a straight square tower. Like I said, it was ambitious, but it wasn't especially it wasn't the greatest looking thing. But above the advanced tower, the tower kind of got bigger towards the top, and then it came up to a point on the roof. And on the roof, I put a big flag that looked sort of like a red flag with a white flag with a red X on it that looked kind of like a Knight Templar flag. And the top floor was my office, because I said, you know, it's my school, I built it, so I'm going to declare myself headmaster of the place. And everyone else in the server, Hunting for Aces, and some of the other guys I'll talk about, they all said, yeah, that's fine, you can be headmaster, we've got our own things going. But the academy is really good, man. We like what you're doing with the place. It looks cool. It's a cool set piece. And so I said, right on. So my office looked kind of like a headmaster's office. I had like some rare things going on. I had several enchanting tables and several library books and a desk and a balcony of my own, which instead of looking out towards the sunset, looked out towards the sea. Because like I said, we were right on the coastline, and I wanted to do that instead. And so that was the Heroes Academy, but by now everyone else was kind of getting into the spirit of, you know, he's got this academy, which is sort of like this big set piece. And there was sort of an unspoken agreement to not really, if somebody had like an idea going, we would all just sort of work it into whatever we were doing. So if I was, my unspoken rule, I never said it, but since, you know, I was making sort of a medieval style building or school, everyone else was going to build a medieval style building too, and not build like, say, an office building, or, you know, or like a military shooting range or something like that. They weren't going to be, you know, building modern things that would sort of make for this weird sort of thing. We have, you know, a medieval fantasy building here and then like a sci-fi spaceship over here. Because it's cool sometimes, but it's kind of weird. And it didn't exactly fit in with what we all did, which was super cool of everyone, because nobody said, hey, don't do this, or hey, is it okay if I do this? We all just said, yeah, we'll just do this. So everybody got around to building different things. Atlas the Ninja built a castle right next to the academy out of stone, which is where the staff lived, and we would occasionally send students there to do errands and do some other things, because it was a bit of a maze, so it was like a bit of a navigational challenge for them. And he also built, on top of a little tiny island out to sea, something called the Hall of Heroes. And what the Hall of Heroes was, it was sort of like a monument to, you know, heroes from before we came along, who weren't actually players, but we sort of agreed to sort of get this mythology going. So we said, we would have like a book in the shrine at the Hall of Heroes, and we would say like, you know, King Arthur did this, and for this we forever honor him in the Hall of Heroes, or something like that. Darkblade built a really cool open air log house that had a big courtyard with a pool in it, and it looked just like a sort of a nice log house, just sort of like a common ground for people to hang out in. And he also built, which was super cool, some underground farms. So you could go underground and plant down wheat or pumpkins, and then harvest them all with the push of a button, because he had some redstone machinery set up, so you could just push a button and it would harvest all the wheat, and you could just pick it all up and make a bunch of bread out of the wheat. So it was like, okay, so that's how we got our students fed. That's like, you know, that's sort of like our kitchens. We don't have house elves like Dobby from Harry Potter running everything, but you know, we're starting to sort of make it's turning from this one tower now into a bit of a campus, which is so cool. And then Darkblade, one of the first things Darkblade actually did on the server, and I know I'm going out of order here, but this is one of the kind of the more important aspects of the story. Darkblade had built not far from the Heroes Academy, not far at all actually. In fact, it was one of the reasons why I decided to build the Heroes Academy where it was, close to the beach. He had built a gate to the Nether, and if you don't know what the Nether is in Minecraft, it's basically hell. It's got the fire and the brimstone and the lava and the demons running around and you know, the red skies, and it's basically hell. It's basically a portal to hell. And so my reasoning was, well, if there's just, you know, like this gate to hell just sitting there out in the open, nobody in their right minds would be sitting there leaving that unguarded in a real world. In Minecraft, if you leave it unguarded, nothing's ever going to happen to it. You're not going to have demons pouring forth and suddenly destroying everything you've done, or attacking you in your sleep, or things like that. But in the real world, you wouldn't leave that unguarded. So my thought was, I built the Heroes Academy there next to the Nethergate, so that if invaders from the Nether ever did come through, we would have a whole bunch of combat-happy, trained students and staff there ready to just shut it down and keep the peace in our world. And at the time, I thought it was a pretty good idea. Some of you out there are laughing maniacally right now. I can almost hear you. One of the other big things, there were two other big things that were built. One of them was on a big desert island far across the sea to the southeast. My brother found a little tiny village, like maybe 4 buildings with like 5 NPC villagers living there. They're not players. NPCs are non-player characters. They're people running around who are controlled by the computer. And he said, well, this is kind of interesting to have these people on a desert island, but they're completely defenseless if something attacks them in the night. And they have this desert island there, which makes for like an already defined landscape. So I'm going to take this little village and I'm going to make it into a big city. And I said, right on, that's cool, go do it. I'll help you out if you need some help. And so he started to create the desert city of Matavia on this desert island. And he made it a little bigger, so it had a guard tower that looked out over the sea towards the Heroes Academy. He had a marketplace, he had big farms, he had different districts where people lived. He had like an area for poor people and an area for rich people. He had a wall surrounding the city to keep out the monsters. He had light posts in the city so people could see at night. And we also built a railway system, kind of like a monorail that would go back and forth from the Academy to Matavia. So now it's not just the Academy campus, it's also this city now. So the world's starting to get bigger and more epic. And I was thinking to myself, okay, this is all cool, but it's missing that sense of adventure and mystery that's so cool in a whole lot of stories. Like in Lord of the Rings, you have the mysteries of, like what exactly is Tom Bombadil? I was a little I'm still kind of confused as to what he is. I'm not exactly sure. Like the mystery of we have this powerful thing like the ring. There's no powerful artifact. Or like in Wheel of Time, you don't have something like the White Tower with the Aes Sedai or all their magic tools and artifacts like the Angrail. So what this world needs is a sense of adventure and a sense of mystery and magic. Even if we can't actually use magic in Minecraft, we can say that we did because we're in creative mode, which lets us fly around and teleport and make hundreds of whatever we want in our hands. Like diamonds are really hard to find in Minecraft. We could just snap our fingers and have hundreds and hundreds of diamonds in our backpacks whenever we wanted. So what I did is I created some magical artifacts and I put those artifacts up in my office. And there were 3 major artifacts that I had up there, and 2 of them went together as a pair. Those 2 were called the Elemental Faces. And what they were is they were essentially, in Minecraft, a lot of blocks are differently colored, and some of them are very vividly colored. Like gold, for example, is obviously gold. It's bright and it's vivid, and it's gold. Diamond's a bright, shiny blue. Emerald's a bright, shiny green. Well, what we had in Minecraft at this time, there was netherrack, which is a bright red, and it comes from the nether. It's the stone that you find in the nether, and if you set it on fire, it stays on fire forever, but it's a bright, vivid red, which is what I cared about. And there's also a block called lapis lazuli, and lapis lazuli is essentially a brick that's a bright, vivid blue, which are both colors that you don't really find in nature. You're not going to find, like bright sky blue stone around, or you're not going to find blood red brick. Clay's sort of like a rusty red, but not in the real. But in the real world, you're not going to find something that's a bright red, basically like my shirt here. You're not going to find this shade of red. So what I did is I took some netherrack and some lazuli, and I made frames of them, like a square or 3x3 square with a hole in the middle, and in the middle I put a dispenser. Now what dispensers do is they hold items, and you hook a redstone signal to them, they spit an item out. So if you have an arrow in a dispenser and you activate it, it'll shoot an arrow out like a trap in Indiana Jones. And what dispensers usually just look like is just like a stone with a hole in the middle of them. But what I did instead was with our texture pack, because you can have texture packs that make Minecraft look a little different. Our texture pack made the dispensers look like faces with sort of puckered mouths. So you would have arrows shooting out of the mouth of the face. So I have this red frame and this blue frame, and I stuck a face in each of them. So now we had a netherrack face and a lazuli face. And the idea was we found these in The netherrack face we found in a dungeon in the middle of a jungle, and the lapis lazuli face was found in the desert city of Matavia. We had found it there, and after we helped them out, they said, "Do you want this thing? You can have it." And so somehow I took these 9-foot by 9-foot things, and I dragged them up 11 flights of stairs. Somehow, we never really said. We didn't worry about that too much. I was a magician, so it's magic. I don't have to explain it. And we dragged these things up and we put them in my office. And I never said what they were for. That was a key point for me. Is I didn't say this is the netherrack face and it does, it shoots fireballs. The point was I just wanted to create something that felt a little mysterious and added a sense of grandeur and an epic sort of scale to this. And so those were the two elemental faces, and I sort of said that maybe those aren't the only ones. Maybe there's other ones out there. Maybe there's like a gold face or a diamond face. And we never found them, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. And then there was one other artifact that I had, and as soon as I say the name of this artifact, you're going to cringe and you're going to call me an idiot. And it was called the Black Coffin. And with a name like that, you know it's trouble. But my character he thought highly of himself, and he was pretty smart, but at the same time he had a couple of boneheaded moves. And what the Black Coffin was, it was essentially a tomb made out of obsidian. And obsidian in Minecraft is super tough. It's really hard to break. You can only break it with one specific tool, and it's with our texture pack, it was a deep, solid black. And when you had a bunch of it put together, like with this black coffin, it was really creepy and ominous looking because it just sort of sucks up all the light around it. Now, what made this black coffin so special is it was just big enough, just barely big enough, and hollow on the inside for someone to stand in there but not move around. And there was an iron door on the front of it. And a wooden door you can just open as much as you want, just like a door. You just click on it and it opens. But an iron door, you have to have a device that can open it. You have to have a button next to it, or you have to pull a lever to open up an iron door. Because otherwise it'll stay shut forever. And so, of course, in the real game, we could just put up a button on the black coffin and open up the door and hop in, or whatever. But in story, I said that there's no way to open it. I found this thing at the bottom of a dungeon, which was also made out of obsidian. I found this thing at the bottom of a dungeon, and I hauled it up to my office, because, of course, what am I going to do but, just leave it there? No, I want to keep an eye on it. I want to make sure that if something happens, I'm there to stop it. But I couldn't get this door open. I tried magic spells, I tried devices like levers and buttons and redstone. I couldn't get this door open. So it was a magically sealed door. So by this point, everything had sort of settled into an equilibrium. We had the Heroes Academy, and the Log House, and the staff of the castle, and the Hall of Heroes, the Desert City of Matavia. We did have 2 dungeons built. One was like a little underground tunnel in the jungle, and the other one was a big black obsidian structure that was a big maze inside, called Bay of Malay. And Bay of Malay was sort of like, in story, there's this terrible, awful place where light never enters. I went in there with a full party of adventurers, and I was the only one who came out alive with the black coffin. And that was the story of Bay of Malay. And it never actually happened, because again, we only have room for 4 people on the server, and in creative mode you can't die. But in story, this was a fabled place. And we were all sort of really getting into the story now. We were all, again, without agreeing to anything, we all sort of agreed that we were creating this world that was bigger than just the things we had shown. There were things like the Black Coffin and the Elemental Faces and the Nethergate, which hinted at bigger things out there. And I had also at this point created for myself. I thought to myself, well, I'm a powerful magician at this point. I'm the headmaster of the Heroes Academy. I used to be in an adventuring party that had gone out and done great things and scoured the land and dove into Bay of Malay. And after that disaster, I sort of hung up my adventuring desires and decided to pass my skills on in the form of the Heroes Academy. And so at this point, we all had some pretty decent ideas going on. And so I decided I'm going to build myself a cool house because I can. Because I'm a magician and I got a little bit of an ego. So I built myself a house that floated above the ocean and was made of blue bricks. Because that sounded awesome to me. So I had a house that floated above the water and was made out of blue lapis lazuli bricks because that's awesome. And so that was our world, and we would get on from time to time. We would help out at Matavia. We would make little renovations to the academy. We would help out the log house. We would explore places we hadn't found yet. We had a huge, sprawling network of caves right underneath the academy, which again was kind of cool. But it was kind of like the Forbidden Forest at Hogwarts. We told the students, don't go in there, but you know we can't stop them from going in there. But if you go in there and you die, that's kind of trouble for us, and you're dead. Same thing with the Nethergate. We had the Nethergate sealed off in an iron cage, and I was the only one with the keys to get inside. And so, of course, we had this big world, and of course, with all these adventure hooks that I had put out there, and with like the faces and the black coffin and the dungeons and all this other stuff, something was bound to happen at some point. And something did happen. One day I logged onto the server, and I was at Matavia, the desert city, and so I decided, oh, okay, I'm at the desert city. I want to go back in and take care of some stuff at the Heroes Academy. I think I might want to like change the design of the flag again a little bit, or clear off the snow again, because we were constantly having to shovel snow off the sidewalks and stuff to keep it, keep it looking good. I could teleport back if I wanted to, because I'm a wizard. I could just teleport back with a snap of my fingers and appear in my office, or I could fly over. I think I'm going to fly this time. I'm going to enjoy the scenic route. And so I took off and I started flying back, and it's about a 3 or 4 minute flight. And eventually, I was approaching the Heroes Academy, and I realized that there was a fire burning, like a little tiny fire. And I thought to myself, that's odd. I don't remember putting a fireplace of any kind outside the academy. And then as I got closer and more stuff started appearing, I realized that's not just a fire. The fire is coming from the hand of a demon, which is standing on the balcony of the cafeteria. There was like 7 or 8 or 9 foot tall demon with a grinning jack-o'-lantern head, and it had fire in its hands, and it was standing there and pretty much just like mocking everything. And it wasn't the only one. There were like a dozen of these things around. They were standing on the balcony, they were standing in the windows, they were standing around the campus. We had a beacon which like shoots a big light into the sky, so you can always tell where the academy is. There were 4 of these things standing around the beacon, like looking like they were like worshiping it or something. One of them had standing in the courtyard of the log house, and the log house was just burned to the ground from the fire in its hands. So already I'm like flying around in a panic, going, oh my gosh, demons have invaded. And then I think to myself, well, what about inside the academy? And I go up through the lobby, everything's fine, the classrooms, everything's fine, the dorms, everything's fine. There's the one on the balcony of the cafeteria, but the cafeteria is all fine. I get up to my office, and the wall between my balcony and my office has been exploded, and there's one of these demons standing there, looking into my office and just laughing at me. I can practically hear him laughing at me. And so I step inside, and the door to the black coffin is gone. The black coffin is wide open, and in the middle of it, where someone will be standing, there's a fire burning. And so the black coffin is open, and either these guys came to get somebody out of the black coffin, or the black coffin opened and these guys got out. I don't know what. But there is also a note left for me in my desk, and it was unsigned. Because when you write books in Minecraft and you sign it, then that means the book is closed, and you can't write anything in it ever again, but you also know who wrote it. But this thing was unsigned, and I had no idea who had done it. And so I grabbed the book from my chest, and I opened it, and it was a short, tiny little note. And all it said was, "The Sundered have reawakened." And that's it. So now at least I had a name to put to these things, and the good news was they weren't attacking Matavia or the Hall of Heroes at all. But they have pretty much just invaded the entire Heroes Academy, and at that moment when the Sundered first invaded, the entire mood of everything changed. From that moment on, it was like sort of a happy little place. Oh, we got this little fantasy world with adventures and a Heroes Academy, and yeah, we've got students. There's nobody actually playing the students, but we can pretend we have students. And you know, it's a happy, fun little fantasy world. Not anymore. Not anymore. Not when we've got demons invading. And they scared all the students, actually. I found a diary in one of the students' nightstands saying, I'm with all the other students and demons are invaded and we're grabbing all the food that we can from the underground farms and we're running away into the mines and we're going to try and lose these guys. And, you know, I'm like, well, that's not good. The mines are dangerous if you're not ready for them because there's all sorts of monsters in there. Like the zombies and skeletons and creepers. I don't know if my students are ready for that. And I'm the headmaster, so I get a responsibility to take care of these guys. So, but here's the creepiest part of all. You were thinking, well, it's your friend, like, it's Atlas the Ninja, or it's Darkblade, or it's Hunting Phrases. It's one of the other guys on the server, right? It wasn't. Because none of them had done it. They were all just as clueless as I was. I called them up and I said, guys, did you do this thing on the server? Because it is kind of cool. It's kind of cool if you did it. I'll give you props for throwing something so awesome and dramatic into the mix. And they all said, no, man, it's not any of us. We didn't do it. If we had done it, I would have told you about it because I wanted to make sure that you're okay with the log house getting burned down because that's kind of permanent. I mean, we can fix it, but it'll take a long time and it won't look the same. So, you know, we didn't do that. And one of my friend's brothers has sort of like runs a Minecraft mafia where he'll prank people. He'll log on. He and like his 10 buddies will log onto a server, nuke the whole thing, and then just leave. And so I thought, is this something he's done? And I asked him. I said, did you do this? And he said, no, man, that's way too clever for me. I would just drop the nuke and run and laugh at them. That's not me. And so now we're all sitting around here going, crap. So some random guy just logged into our server and just left demons everywhere. So he was playing by our rules, and aside from the loghouse, he hadn't done any permanent damage, but, you know, he had changed the entire mood of everything. And so I said, okay, you know, take notes on everything so we know what's happening, and destroy everything, and then kill all the demons. And we got to find out what's happening to the students if we can find them. So we were like going through the caves, looking for any hint of where they were. We couldn't find anything. There were no other chests with notes from the students or like torches indicating that where they had gone. We hadn't found anything. So again, time kind of passed, and we waited around to see what would happen. And we were attacked by the Sundered a second time. And this attack was a whole lot worse, actually, for a whole number of reasons. First off, I mentioned that the gate to the Nether was behind a cage. The cage was demolished because there were the little guys who looked like crosses before. We called them servants. But now there was a bigger guy who was a bit bigger, and he had like these long arms. And he just sort of basically demolished the cage and also like put a big crater in the ground where he had come in. So now we had this demolisher who was just going around just like wrecking the landscape. And these weren't monsters that you could like run around and fight. They were basically just structures made out of brick like anything else. But you could tell they carried like more weight. These static objects carried more weight and had more of an impact on the world than 100 roving zombies would have had. Because they were powerful and they were changing things, and we couldn't fight back. How do you fight back against something, or how do you prevent something from happening when you're not there to stop it from being placed down and changing everything? That was sort of the crux of the issue. So now we had a second invasion when the gate to the Nether was open and we could just have Sunder pouring through all the time. And it got worse because now they're starting to personally attack the teachers. Because we had 3 teachers at the time, myself, Darkblade, and Atlas the Ninja. Darkblade's entire log cabin burned to the ground, like I said. It's gone. Atlas the Ninja, he had built a big castle for the whole staff, and some of these Sundered had gone in and blown up some TNT in his castle right under his king-size bed, so they were deliberately trying to attack and kill him. And out at my floating mansion across the ocean, Lazuli Manor, they had sent out something that looked like the Hulk made out of red, bloody red netherrack to try and kill me. And I wasn't there at the time, like I said. Because, it wasn't like I was sleeping and all of a sudden this thing just sort of lands in my house and starts fighting me. But it was sent to kill me, but it didn't because I wasn't there. And we eventually sort of realized that these creatures, after they couldn't like move around in the real world after so long. They could like move around in the Nether, but in the real world after so long, they just sort of like stopped moving. They went comatose. And so we could basically just demolish them then. But the interesting thing was in the chest of this Hulk that we found, there was a block of TNT. So this thing was now also trying to kill me, so the Sundered are now personally attacking all of the students. And there were a few other plot hooks that we found that were really interesting. One of the things we found when we went to the Nether, because we figured if these things are coming from the Nether, then we ought to take a look in the Nether and see if there's some hint, some clue as to what's going on. Because we went there after the first attack and nothing had changed. But we went back after the second attack, and there was a rickety sort of obsidian bridge leading out over the open air over to an obsidian tomb, something or like a crypt, sort of something like a big roomy structure. And so there was an iron door on the front, and so I went over there with Hunting for Aces. He was helping me investigate, and so we knocked down the door and we stepped inside, and there's an entire, the walls are just lined with grinning jack-o'-lanterns. I mean, at this point, we started to associate jack-o'-lanterns with the Sundered. So like, the whole entire faces of Sundered just staring at us, glowing, grinning demonically. So already we're a little creeped out. We look on the sides, and there's a pair of Sundered standing there, like watching over the thing. And in the middle of the room, there's a chest on a raised platform. And so I go up to the chest and I open the chest, and inside bones and eyes have been arranged to look like a skull. And there's a little tiny unsigned book also there. Again, it's unsigned, so we don't know who's invading the server and who's planting all these demons and these Sundered around and basically, leading us by the nose on this plot hook. And so I opened the book and it says, "You dare to desecrate the tomb of Lord Sundaris. We will watch you bleed." And I'm like, that's actually pretty effective. I'm a little creeped out. I'm going to close the book, put it back in the chest, close the chest, back slowly out of the tomb, and put the door back. I turned to Hunting for Aces and I said, "We were never here, were we?" And he goes, "Nope, we were never here. We're going to leave now." And so by this point I sort of figured out that if Lord Sundaris, whoever he was, had figured out that we were in his tomb, that was like the event that would activate the next step in the story, like another Sundered invasion or something. And this all wasn't happening over the course of just one login. It wasn't like we log in and there's the first invasion, we log in and there's the second invasion, then we log in and something else has happened. It was like, we log in, there's the first invasion, we log in a couple more times, then there's the second invasion, and then we kept logging in some more times, and a few other things were happening in between. But the invasions were the major bookmarks of this story. And so that was the second attack. And if you think things are bad already, they got worse. Because I logged onto the server one day, and I was walking up the spiral staircase to go all the way up to my office. And here's the thing about spiral staircases, is how many times have you looked up at the top of a spiral staircase? In real life, maybe you do it sometimes, but in a video game, especially a first-person video game, you really don't. Think about it. How many times when you're playing Call of Duty or Battlefield or Skyrim or Minecraft or whatever, and you're going up a spiral staircase, do you actually look up? You don't, because it's not important, and it's also kind of hard to do with a mouse and keyboard controls. When you can't see or feel your feet. You're looking at the ground and you're looking where you're going. So, for whatever reason, I get to the top of the stairs and I look around and I look up at the top of the staircase where nobody ever looks, and there's some weird black thing up there. And it's not something from the Sundered, because the Sundered are bright red. The Sundered are bright red, and they're obvious, and they just get in your face. With the grinning jack-o'-lantern heads and the flaming hands. No, this was black and it was hidden. And so I flew up there, and what it was a block of endstone. And in regular Minecraft, with Minecraft's regular graphics, endstone is sort of a lime green stone. It's a pale, off-white, sickly shade of green. But with our texture pack, endstone is like a black stone with a white diamond outlining it. And on all the surfaces of this endstone, there were wither skeleton skulls. And wither skeletons are black. They're not like regular skeletons, which are, white bone. These things are like pitch ebony black. So we got this black block with black skeleton skulls on it, just sitting up there in my stairwell. I have no idea how long this thing's been there. This thing could have been there for weeks or months. I have no clue, and I have no clue what it's for. But I look up at this thing, and it's just this one little hidden thing there, And I think to myself, my first thought for some reason is, those skulls are there to listen to me, to watch my every move. And I don't know why. And so I found this one thing, and then I also find one in my little brother's house out in Matavia. He's the mayor, he's the authority figure there, and there was one in his house too. Again, at the top of a stairwell where nobody looks. And so I go, now I'm kind of scared, because the Sunder never attacked Matavia. They limited all of their attacks to the academy. But now we have these black skull-covered things attacking, like appearing in Matavia. And so we destroyed the little like listening bugs. They were pretty small for Minecraft, and you know, nothing else had happened. And we were working on shoring up the fences for the academy. So we were building these great big walls around the campus to sort of keep things both out from coming in, like the zombies and skeletons and creepers and stuff, and you know, like things like invading armies and bandit forces. And also, if these things were coming out from the Nethergate, we were also trying to keep them in from getting out into the rest of the world. So there was sort of like there was a little bit of an element of we're kind of quarantining ourselves until we know what's going on here sort of element, which was kind of scary. And I admit I didn't really like it. It was an unfortunate necessity for me, because I like the idea of the academy being open to the world, open for anybody to come in and just come in and learn. There was no, you know, application process. There was no owl that sent you a letter from the Ministry of Magic. It was just, if you want to come and learn, it doesn't matter who you are, what gender you are, what race you are, how old you are. It doesn't matter. If you want to come and you want to learn at the Heroes Academy, we have room for you, or we'll find room for you. But we will take anyone who wants to come. There are no walls keeping you out of the Heroes Academy. And it was a tiny little point, but it was a point I liked. But now, Hunting for Aces said, you know, at this point, we should put some walls up. We should put some like defensive walls up. And I said, yeah, you're right. And so we started putting up these big, tall, thick walls with some towers in them. And they, in terms of, you know, complexity, they weren't all that complex, but they were round, which is the first round thing I built, and they looked pretty cool. They had windows leading out, and they had a canopy on top to you know, keep people from getting snowed on all the time. But it took a long time to build those things. We spent like 3 or 4 weeks working on those walls because they were huge. You can see what they look like here. And so Hunting for Aces was helping me out the walls, and also he never had his own structure in story to call a home. I had the Heroes Academy, I had the Zuli Manor, Atlas for Ninja had his castle, the Darkblade had his log house, which after it got destroyed, he built himself a flying stone fortress, which was loaded to the gills with weapons and armor. My little brother, the Private 725, he had his house out of Matavia, but Hunting for Aces didn't have his own house. He just sort of was like wandering in and out from time to time, helping out where he could be. And in story, he was kind of like a druid or a ranger or something, just wandering the landscape. And he said, you know, I'm finally going to build my house. And he has the coolest house I have ever seen. It doesn't matter, like, okay, if you see pictures of Minecraft when people have like 30-story tall mansions or flying mages towers with tons of redstone circuitry, doesn't matter. Still not as cool as Hunting for Aces houses. Why? Because he builds a gigantic tree and hollows it out and lives inside of it. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, tree's not that big. Isn't it kind of cramped? Isn't it kind of like weird and like tiny to live in? Isn't it uncomfortable? No. He builds like the most luxurious tree houses that you could ever want to live in. If these things existed in real life, I would pay money for them. He had lily pads and waterfalls that you could slide down to get down to the outside. He had jukeboxes and enchanting tables and maps of the world, and the walls were lined in gold. I'm not kidding when I make all this up. You can see it here. I'll show you video of it. It is the coolest house I have ever seen in Minecraft. I am super, super jealous of him because he builds these things, like every time he makes a house for himself, these are what he builds, and they're so freaking cool. And so he finally said, I'm going to build my own house. And I said, you sure you want to build a tree, a flammable tree, when we have these fire-handed sundered around? They've already burned down the log house. And he said, you know what, I'll take the risk because, you know, I like my trees. And I think he took a calculated risk here, I think, knowing that Lord Sundaris would see something so awesome and kind of respect it enough to not burn it down. It was a gutsy move, but it actually happened. Lord Sundaris never actually physically attacked anything else on our server, aside from the log house. So he came into the world, but also as he was building this, over the course of a couple login sessions, one day, I'm actually in the real world. I'm driving home from some errand or something, and I get a call from him. And so I answer the phone, and I say, "Hey, what's up?" And he goes, "Are you near your computer right now?" I go, "No." He says, "Get on the Minecraft server as soon as you can when you get home, because something's happened. Something really creepy has happened." And I go, "What is it?" And he says, I'll tell you, you'll see when you get on, but we've been invaded again." And I go, "Oh, crap." So I get on the server again, and we've been invaded again. But it wasn't by the Sundered. It's a completely new, supernatural, otherworldly force. And they look like the listening bugs that were at the top of the stairwells earlier. That was like an initial sort of a reconnaissance mission or something. But now, we're finding end stone crosses, these black crosses, and every single surface of these things is mounted with a withered skeleton skull. So you find these black crosses, and they have like 15 skulls decorated on them. And here's the thing, like I said, there were maybe about like 12 Sundered in the first invasion. These black crosses, there were like 30 of these things around the Academy campus, and at Lazuli Manor, and at the Hall of Heroes, and at Matavia. So now I'm kind of starting to panic, because Matavia is sort of like a peaceful city. It's like the Shire or something on a desert island. You know, nothing bad ever happens to Matavia. The Sundered hadn't attacked Matavia. But now they're starting to attack Matavia. And I go, "Oh crap, this isn't good." And so I tell Hunting Phrases, "Destroy them all. I'm not taking any more chances with anything like the Sundered. Kill them all right now." And so we go on and we're destroying them all. And as we're destroying them, David tells me, "By the way, this isn't the worst or creepiest thing that I found." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Well, I'll show you, but I was filling in a map." Because with a map in Minecraft, it's blank at first. You have to fly around, and as you walk around it, you uncover more and more of the map. And so he said, I was making a map with the Academy campus as the center of the map. But as I was going around the edges, I found these black crosses around the edges of the map. One in each corner of the map, and one also in the middle of the edge. So these 8 crosses outlining the map of the Academy. And I go, wow, that's actually kind of creepy. And he said, "That's not the creepiest part. The creepiest part is some of the skulls on the crosses, you can turn so they're looking a certain direction. And all around the map, every single skull that you can turn to be looking in a certain direction, every single one of them was turned inwards to look at the Academy. The edges of a map go out about like a mile or something. So imagine this. Imagine you're sitting there in the Academy, and all of a sudden you realize with the realization or with the knowledge that there are these 8 crosses a mile out around you in a circle, and they're covered in skulls, and all the skulls are looking at you. I still get chills up and down the back of my neck imagining that. Like, imagine in your home right now that happening. That you have these stalkers a mile away just watching you. And so we named them. Because of that incident, I said, okay, we need a name for these things. I'm calling them the Stalkers. Because they hadn't left a note for us in a chest or anything. They just sort of appeared and they were just there. And so I said, crap, we're already dealing with the Sundered. Now we're dealing with these Stalkers too. And I said, okay, here's the deal. Here's the deal, Aces. Hunting Phrases, we're gonna finish up the walls, and then we need to move this along. So finish the walls, and then we'll figure out what to do from there. And then something happened that kind of pushed me over the edge, and it was kind of dark for our story. As I mentioned, the students had gone missing, and we still hadn't found them yet. Well, we finally found out what happened to at least one of them. We had found a little tiny tunnel underneath the Academy. And this wasn't the sort of tunnel that you find naturally. It was a tunnel that was just big enough for someone to walk through. Like, you would pretty much be shimmying along this thing in real life. So naturally, I was like, we all knew this was a man-made structure. And since we know that the students had flown underground, we know that this was built by the students. So we followed the tunnels trying to find some sign of the students, and the tunnel ended in a big hollow cave, but it was a dead end. There was stone around most of the things and gravel. And this was sort of the first hint that something was wrong, because gravel falls. If you dig out a block and there's gravel above it, the gravel will fall down. So it looked kind of like a cave-in almost, like something had exploded or gotten loose, and all this gravel had fallen down. And then there was a chest not far from the gravel in our dead end, and so we opened the chest, and inside is someone's skeleton. The bones had been arranged to look like a body, and there was someone's skull there too. And there was a diary, an unsigned diary. So I go, oh crap. I don't want to read this diary. But I pick up the book, and I open it, and it's the diary of one of my students. And his name was, whoever it was who created it had actually gone to a whole lot of trouble to give this guy a pretty sympathetic backstory and motivations and all those things. His name was Leroy Frazier. And his story was he had left his home and ran off from his mother and his siblings to go off and join the Heroes Academy to be someone that he could be proud of and do great things and see the land and make his fame and fortune. And he was having a good time, doing okay in his classes, and then the Sundered invaded, and he had ran underground with like the other dozen or so students in a panic. And the students were not very well equipped, it turns out. The journal said that they had maybe like one pickaxe between all of them and maybe 3 swords. Between like 12 students, keep in mind, and not that much food to last them very long. So they were going to starve out real quick in the dark because they didn't grab any torches against all these monsters. And so what happened is a creeper had exploded and caved in the roof, and Leroy was on his own, separated from everyone else. And his final words in his diary was, "Mother, I'm so sorry. I can hear the skeletons coming," and it just stopped. It was, for a game that looks so cartoony like Minecraft, which is made of like these cubes, these sort of cartoony looking cubes. It was a very real, powerful human moment there where one of my students that I was responsible for taking care of, who had run away from his family to try and go off and be this big, proud adventurer, was dead. And that was sort of the tipping point for me. I was like, okay, that's it. That's it. I'm done sort of playing nice. I'm done trying to study the Sundered and study the Stalkers, and I'm done playing along here at this game. Now I'm out for blood because you murdered one of my students. You drove one of my students to his death. So I went back to the Nether, to Lord Slenderis' tomb, and I kicked down the door. No, actually I didn't kick it down. I blew the thing open with TNT, so I caused a little bit of damage to his tomb. And I opened his chest, and I took his book, and I wrote him a challenge. I said, "You want to watch me bleed? You won't get the chance, you scum. Meet me outside Bay Malay, outside the dungeon of Bay Malay, next Friday at 7 o'clock. I'm gonna finish this there, and I'm gonna watch you bleed." And I signed it. No, I didn't sign it. And I signed it in the book. I didn't make it permanent. I signed it from Headmaster Nooners. And I put the book down, I shut it, and I said, well, that's like a week or 2 away. So now all we gotta do is wait. Waiting is so hard. You have no idea how absolutely just torturous that waiting was. Because then there was another Sundered invasion. Not really all that severe. They didn't have another big Demolisher, another big Hulk that they sent to try and kill us, but it was just sort of a note saying, "Hey, I got your message. Here's what I think of it." So I went back to the chest and I looked at it again, and Lord Slenderis says, "Excellent. I'll meet you there. I'm looking forward to meeting you, mortal." So it was like, well, it's official now. He got the note. We're finally, at some point, we're going to meet whoever it was who'd been messing with our server, who's been sending out the Sundered, and the Stalkers, for all we knew, were either the same guy or they were someone different. And then there were 2 other noteworthy things that happened between the 3rd invasion and the final showdown with Lord Sundaris. First thing that happened was some more bad news. In the third Sundered invasion, they blew open the walls to my office, which, again, I remind you, is 11 stories and like 500 feet up in the air, and they stole the elemental faces and the black coffin. They were just gone. Which was actually sort of almost like a breaking point for me, again, because it was like, as long as I have these things, I feel like I have some semblance of control. As long as I can like control what happens in my own office. And I was like, they've invaded my office, and not only have they just broken out, and they've taken it. So I could repair the walls, and physically speaking, there was nothing stopping me from making the elemental faces and the coffin again. I could just, grab a bunch of obsidian and lazuli and make them all again. But, we've all sort of agreed by this point to go by the story. We've all agreed to go by the story and see what happens. Because as kind of scary as it was a little bit, having this thing happen and having no idea whatsoever who's behind it, it was kind of cool and it was kind of fun. So we all agreed to follow the plot hook and see what would happen. So that was one of the things that happened. Second thing that happened, out at Lazuli Manor, I have a big courtyard. I'm kind of proud of it. It's got a fountain in the middle, it's got flowers and some beautiful trees. It's a pretty thing. And yeah, it was something I was nice and proud of. My sister actually helped me out with a little bit, and she did a good job. It looked nice. It looked like a place I would hang out with the love interest in character, or just hang out, or it'd be like sort of the quirky garden of the headmaster. I went back there because the fountain got destroyed when the Sundered Hulk invaded. I went back out there, and there was a 25 block tall Stalker cross. Now keep in mind, like I said, when you find a Stalker cross, these things are covered in every surface in a black skull. So there are hundreds, I mean hundreds, of black Stalker skulls covering this cross sitting out at my manor. I mean, this thing is titanic. This thing was about half as tall as the Academy. It was huge, and it was hollow on the inside. And it was lined with pressure plates. And when you stepped on the pressure plates with an activated device, and it would warp you somewhere. And it warped you to some underground tomb that was an obsidian tomb that was big enough to sort of walk through, and there was some lava there, and some other obsidian crosses, not covered in skulls, just obsidian crosses, and there was a black coffin there. I don't know if it was the one from my office, or another one, or what, because we never said that there was only one. We never said that there was only one. We kind of presumed that there was like one of each elemental face. We didn't know how many they were, but there might have been more than one black coffin. So there was a black coffin with its door open, and a sign that stuck to it saying, "This is one way to leave." And so you would walk through, but it turns out that if you walked in the black coffin, it was a waterfall of lava. So you would step in the lava fall, and you would die, and you would respawn. But the idea is that, in game you respawn, but in story, it's a death trap. We never found another way to get out. So if we went there, we would just sort of look around for a little while to see, is there a hidden passage? Is there some sort of device to push? We never found anything. So all we could do is just teleport out and go back to the Academy or back to Matavia. So at this point now we're thinking like, okay, this is the next plot hook to deal with. I'm not going to touch this now until I'm done with the Sundered. So after I'm done with the Sundered, I'm going to go deal with the Stalkers next and put them in their place too. So by now, like I said, the story had gotten pretty dark because we got the Sundered invading and destroying stuff. We got the Stalkers invading stuff and outlining the map and staring at us from a mile away. One of our students died. We needed some good news. And fortunately, we got some good news. The rest of the students that had run away in the tunnel system made it out alive. They had managed to scavenge enough wood from the underground mines that were set in place. Like if you build a mine, you like support it with wood so nothing collapses. They had taken the wood from that and built tools and dug their way to the surface, which would have been impressive enough on its own, but they then went and took it a step further. They found a hill a little ways away from the Academy, outside the Academy walls, and hollowed it out. And inside the hill, they made a little sanctuary for themselves. It was a tiny little space, like barely bigger than like a classroom back at the academy. It couldn't have been any bigger than like 4 dorms stuck together. And like I said, the dorms were tiny. But inside this little sanctuary, they managed to cram in like 5 or 6 bunk beds and had another basement under that with an underground farm down there so that they could have enough food to eat and restore their strength. And I was super impressed because both from a story standpoint and a game mechanic standpoint, because just from a game standpoint, it was just a cool little structure that managed to like make maximum use out of such a tiny amount of space. And in story, my students had lived. They survived and they lived. And I found a note from one of them in the chest saying, if anyone finds this, please give this to Headmaster Nooners. My name is, I think it was Sarah or Elizabeth. I'm with the rest of the students and we made it out alive except for Leroy. Leroy didn't make it. I'm sorry he died. There was nothing we could do. None of us really want to go back to the academy right now until this whole thing with the demons is okay. So we're all going home. If you need us, you have our records. You know where to find us. And honestly, that was super cool. It was like a little bit of, it was like that silver lining of hope, which was so cool. And then finally came the day of the showdown with Lord Sundaris. I logged back onto the server about an hour and a half before 7 o'clock, so about 5:30 or something, just to get ready to see if maybe I can catch on the player list who Lord Sundaris is, if he's making any last minute changes. Again, nothing. So by this point, I'm starting to get ready for combat. This is sort of like the lock and load montage of every action movie, medieval style. I'm making myself the absolute best armor, the best weapons, the best sword, the best bow and arrow that I can make in Minecraft, and then I'm enchanting it with the best enchantments I can find. If this were a movie, a scene in a movie, like in Lord of the Rings or Chronicles of Narnia or something, I would be there at the anvil with my hammer raised, and I would imagine myself like thunder striking the hammer as I bring the hammer down on the anvil and I forge this legendary sword. Like, that's the sort of scene that this was. And I'm making myself potions that will like buff my strength and buff my defenses and make me regenerate health faster and restore a ton of health. I am decking myself out for combat like there's no tomorrow. But the thing is, in character, it really did feel like there was no tomorrow. You know, it fully felt like my character was about to walk off to Betrayal, get into his fight with Lord Sundaris, and die. And I know, in game story, it was just like, okay, so he dies, he appears again, and, you know, at his spawn point, and you just go on. But there really was like a sense of finality to this whole thing. Because look at it from what had happened. Think back to what I was saying when I started this whole thing, this whole episode, however long ago. We had taken this landscape, this beach coast that was just completely natural. We had created this big sprawling landscape with its own story and its own mythology and its own sense of mystery and adventure and epicness. And we had made this, and then somebody had gone and made it sort of even bigger and more epic by taking control of it away from us. And so now we're like a lot of us are all personally invested in this thing. And so we're waiting for you know, this was sort of like what everything had been leading up to, for the headmaster anyways. This is what he built the academy for, to fight off a demon invasion from the Nether. It had happened, and he failed to meet the challenge. This was kind of a little bit of his redemption too, he was sort of going out there to avenge Leroy, the student who had died. And it really did feel like I was walking off into the unknown. Doesn't matter that I had the best weapons. Doesn't matter that I had the best armor, the best potions. It doesn't matter that I built Betrayal and that I knew the layout of the maze. Because I got out to Betrayal early to like sort of prep it. Because what I was expecting was to like meet Lord Sundaris outside of Betrayal and fight him in the desert out there. And I was like fully ready to like line the place to line the place with TNT, and if things were going bad, I was just gonna blow up the whole landscape and take him out with me. I was fully ready to do that. So I was going out to the desert to start putting down the TNT and the wiring and everything. But there was a note on the door of Bay Malay, and it said, to Headmaster Nooners, meet me inside Bay Malay when 7 o'clock rolls around. You know the way. You'll know where to find me. I'll be in the chamber where you found the black coffin. See you at 7. And so I was like, well, crap. And there was one last change to the world. Not another invasion. Somebody had taken the beacons. In Minecraft, you can make beacons and put them on top of a pyramid of gemstones, either iron, gold, diamond, or emerald. And these beacons will light up. But the thing about beacons is you can also have them apply like benefits to you if you're standing close enough to them. Like you can have a beacon that will make you faster, or make you more defensive, or make you regenerate health and make you stronger. And with 4 of these things, I was getting a ton of benefits from this. So I was thinking to myself, if Lord Sundaris put those there, then he's helping me out, his opponent. And if he didn't put them there, then who did? Are the Stalkers like trying to help me somehow? Or is this something that one of my buddies, like Hunting for Aces, put there? And he said, no, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And so I'm flying around the landscape, sort of looking over everything that I've done and waiting for something to happen. And Hunting for Aces at this point logs on because he said he would be there to provide me moral support, and just to sort of be there for me, which was a nice touch, really. It was in character. There hadn't been much face-to-face, like in character interaction, like maybe once in a while, but it hadn't happened all that much. But this was like a key point in the story where it really did mean a lot to have Headmaster Nooner's closest friend, there to see him off as he's fighting in like the most important fight of his life. And just looking out over the landscape of everything that we've done, this was the most personally invested I've ever been in any work of fiction ever, because that's essentially what this had become. If I were to like write this down or into a book, I could have sold this pretty decently. If I told the story well enough. We looked out over everything that we'd done, over the academy, over the log house, over the floating fortress that had been built to replace the log house, Lazuli Manor, the Hall of Heroes, the city of Matavia, which was really awesome at this point, because my little brother was still working on it all this time. The dungeon in the jungle, the dungeon of Bay Malay, the mystical artifacts, and then all these invasions. This was a pretty epic storyline, but we had made it all happen. This wasn't like Skyrim where somebody else, makes everything and then gives it to you. This was our own personal thing that we had built with our own, 2 virtual blocky hands and made. And now it's all sort of like, it feels like this is the last time, in character, it did sort of feel like the last time I'd be seeing this. It felt like the last time Headmaster Nunes would be able to look on his work as the headmaster of the Heroes Academy. And he was walking off to his death. It's what it felt like. So finally 7 o'clock rolls around, and I step inside Bay Malay. And like I said, I know the layout. So I know that the first thing you do is you take a left, you go down the hall, and then you take a right. And then you take another right to go up the ladders. So I step inside the dungeon, and I take a left, and I'm throwing up torches on the wall so I can see, and I take a right, and there's a wall there where there shouldn't be a wall. And there's a sign saying, "Are you lost?" That diabolical theme. He had changed the layout of the maze on me, so I was getting lost in my own maze now. Again, he was sort of sticking it to me again, saying, "Oh, you made this thing? Watch me mess it up." It really was devious, and he was taunting me at this point, because I was going through Bay Malay. He hadn't changed the layout completely, but he had changed it just enough just to mess with me a little bit and confuse me as I turned around. Because in an all-black obsidian dungeon with no distinguishing features, you're gonna get, if you lose your bearings, you're gonna get lost real quick. You're gonna lose your way real quick. So I find my way through the dungeon, and there's still signs along the walls just mocking me everywhere I go. It's like, you haven't done a very good job protecting this place, have you, mortal? It's like, oh, I'm waiting to meet you, mortal, to rip into you and to kill you and to tear your limbs from your body. I'm like, okay, this is actually kind of creepy. So I'm going through, I'm swatting skeletons aside with my epic weapon. It's practically Excalibur at this point. And I finally get my way up to the top. And the top of the dungeon, it's not a maze, it's just like a long, winding, snaking path. And there's signs all the way going, oh, I'm waiting to meet you so much. And the way Bay Malay worked is it wasn't like you got to the top and then you had to get to your way, and then you had to like go your way back down, and then go back out. Well, the way it worked was you got to the top and the end of the maze, and there was a hole in the ground, and you jumped in the hole, and it would drop you like 7 stories into this little chamber. And that little chamber was where I had originally in story found the black coffin, which by now I'm presuming is the source of all my troubles, and I should have just left it alone. And I had gotten out last time because I had dug myself a little shaft out of Bay Malay and like climbed up the ladders. So I finally get to the top, and there's a sign saying, "Are you ready, mortal?" in all capital letters. And I go, "Yeah, I'm ready." I take the drop down, I drop 7 stories, and I plunge into a pool of water, which breaks your fall so you don't die. And I swim out and I look around the chamber. The chamber's sealed up and they're sundered inside. There's 2 of the little servants and one of the big hulks there. And in between the hulk's feet is the black coffin. Again, it's another black. So now there was the one we found earlier. And then there's this one, and I presume that this is the one that was taken from my office. There's the one on the hollow cross at Lazuli Manor, and then there's the one that I presume was taken from my office down deep back where I found it at Bay Malay. And so I walk up to the black coffin, and I look inside, and there's a hole in the bottom of the black coffin. There's another drop, but it's not into pitch blackness this time. This time it's into some sort of fiery, it looks like there's flames dancing up from beneath the black coffin. So for all I know, I could be jumping into a pit of lava. And I wasn't in creative mode anymore. This is one of Lord Sundaris' terms of engagement. He said, if you want to meet me, come through Bay Malay, but do it in adventure mode. Because you can die in adventure mode. You can't break stuff instantaneously in adventure mode. You can't suddenly throw up your hands and have a stack of diamonds in adventure mode. In adventure mode, you got to go out and you got to find it. So now it's my immortality is basically gone at this point. So I'm like, if I dive into this lava, I'm dead. I'm dead and I'll respawn, and that's the end of the story for Headmaster Nunes. So I fall down, and it's basically, I drop down into the nether with the fire and the brimstone and the lava and everything else again. And I look out across the chamber, and standing directly across from me, on a throne of pumpkin skulls, or pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns, sundered faces, keep in mind, because this place, like Halloween jack-o'-lanterns, nobody's having Halloween in the Heroes Academy anymore. Everyone's too scared of jack-o'-lanterns at this point. Sitting across from me on the throne of jack-o'-lanterns is Lord Sundaris. But here's the thing. I knew who Lord Sundaris was because I met him before. It was my good friend hunting for aces. And here's the killer part. Before I had gone down into Bay Malay, I had wrote out my last will and testament for everyone in character as Headmaster Nunes, and I had left stewardship and ownership and everything about the Headmaster and the Heroes Academy to him. I had left him everything, and he had gone and set up the whole thing with the Sundered and betrayed me. And so he was like, "Hey, glad you finally made it." And I remember my reaction was just one word. I just said, "What?" with a period on the end. Not with a question mark or an exclamation point, just a plain period. Because I was not expecting. I was fully expecting Hunting for Aces to be up there outside Bay Malay still, just like cheering me on. But no, there he is standing across me, decked out in armor and with a weapon of his own, and I can tell because it's glowing. His weapon and armor, they're enchanted too. So he's like, "I did this all to test you. I am the 456th Lord Sundaris, and you were not ready for this. You were weak. You were not prepared to take ownership of your students and everything that was going on seriously. You were soft. I needed to scare you into being a better warrior, into being better prepared for this sort of thing." I looked at him and I said, "You killed one of my students." And he goes, No. That wasn't me. That was you not prepping them enough." I said, Bull crap. This was all on you because you had the Sundered invade. How did you even become Lord Sundaris? And he goes, "I killed the old one, and apparently when you kill the old one, you inherit his title. So I'm the first human to become Lord Sundaris in like 5,000 years or something. So yeah, I'm pretty awesome at this point because that's a pretty unheard of feat to pull off." And so I just look at him and I go, "This is all on you. This has nothing to do with me. And he goes, you want to blame the death of an innocent on me? Oh, no you don't. Fine by me, let's do it. And so we get into a fight. And so we duke it out in the middle of this nether chamber. And it was actually a pretty even fight. Because here's the thing that I wasn't ready for, is there was lava flowing around the chamber. And I had enchantments on my armor to protect me from damage, but not specifically to protect me from fire. So I had really strong armor, but it wasn't enchanted to protect me from fire. David's armor, or Hunting for Ace's armor, Lord Sanderos' armor, is not as strong because it's made out of gold, and gold's soft, but it was enchanted to protect him from fire. So if there were no enchantments, I would have won this thing. I would have mopped the floor with them and beat him to a pulp. But with the enchantments, it was actually a pretty even fight. And so we were hitting each other with swords, we were shooting each other with arrows, we were knocking each other into lava and crawling out before he melted in the lava. And so finally what happened is I knock him into the lava with my sword, and he knocks me into lava with his bow, and I pull out my arrow and I shoot him, and finally, because we were both taking up a lot of damage, and finally I kill him. And about 2 seconds later, I die too. And so that's how the fight with Lord Sanderos went. That's how I discovered that my closest friend and my ally, who built awesome tree houses and who I entrusted ownership of the academy towards, turned out to be behind the whole entire invasion, burned down the log house, drove the students into running terrified for their lives, and killed one of my students. And we were both dead at the bottom of Bay Malay, with no one really knowing what was going on because I was trusting everything to him. It was really cool on his part, though. He did a good job. So, of course, since we both died, we both respawned back at the academy with all of our, with everything fine, because that's the way it works in Minecraft. And so I looked up at him and I go, okay, so what happens now to us in story? We could make new character, we could give our characters different outfits and say we're new people. And he goes, no, that's not what I have planned. I gave you an enchanted apple before you went into Bay Malay, right? And I go, yeah, I had that when I went in. You can see that on my screen. And he goes, well, here's the thing. It's not just, it's an enchanted apple. Enchanted. And I go, okay, so what's the enchantment? And he said, well, if I happen to defeat you in combat, it's an enchantment that wouldn't kill you. It would keep you from being killed, and it would have you respawn back at the Heroes Academy. And so I said, so you never meant to actually kill me? And he said, no, I meant to teach you a lesson. That's the whole point behind this. And I go, oh, I mean, you're still facing some trouble in the eyes of the law and everything, because you still killed one of my students. And he goes, no, that's on you. And we still disagree about that to this day. For the record, Hunting for Aces, I still say that's on you. We'll see what the folks in the comments say, which could be interesting. But no, I still blame that on him. And I said, so what about the Stalkers? You're behind the Thunder, but are you behind the Stalkers too? And he goes, no, that's not me. He said, I know who the Stalkers are, and I've been working with them a little bit to make sure that everything lines up together, to make sure that our story's not conflicting with itself. But I'm not going to tell you who it is. And he said, go back to Bay Malay and go look behind my jack-o'-lantern throne again. And so I go, okay. So I go back to Bay Malay and I run through the dungeon in creative mode again, so that, I can get there a lot quicker and I'm not in trouble. Because by this point, that whole thing's over. So I go back and I look behind his throne, and there's a chest there. And I open the chest, and there's a book inside, and it's his diary detailing his thoughts of everything that's going on. And there's actually a name for the Black Stalkers now. The Stalker. Well, that sounded accidentally racist. For the black crosses that are covered in black skulls this whole time, they're called the Withered, and they come from the end. And the Sundered and the Withered have been fighting for forever, more or less. And when the black coffin got opened, the Sundered got out. But doing that somehow also released the Withered. And so now the fight with the Sundered, that's over. Since Hunting for Aces is Lord Sanderos, he can order them all to not touch anything, to stay in the Nether, and to not bother the Heroes Academy at all anymore. And so So the plot line with the Sundered, that's basically over. I mean, hunting for aces, I didn't trust him in character. I didn't trust him as far as I could kick him. Not at all. With good reason, I would think. And he knew it. I told him, I don't trust you right now. And he goes, I know you don't. I'll learn it again. But so now we have a name for these things, the Withered. And the last act of that night, both a night in game, since this happened at night, and that night logged on, is Hunting for Aces said, you still have Leroy Frazier's bones? And I said, yeah, I took them up and put them in a chest in my office, sort of as like my token of remembrance, sort of like, you know, Uncle Ben for Peter Parker, or Batman's parents for Batman, or something like that. So like my reminder of, you know, the responsibility I have as a headmaster, or whatever. And he says, okay, good, grab them and meet me at the Hall of Heroes. So I go, okay. So I grab up his skeleton and his sword, his nearly broken sword, which he was using to fight off the skeletons, and I fly out to the Hall of Heroes. And one of the things that's at the Hall of Heroes is a tiny little pool of lava, which is sort of like a funeral pyre. And so he says, Leroy deserves to be remembered and honored for fighting so bravely and for inspiring, you know, such acts. And I say, I agree. And so I throw Leroy's bones in the lava as the sun is rising behind the funeral pyre, which was actually a really cool scene. And so by now you're all thinking, wow, okay, what I hope you're thinking is, wow, this is a really cool story. So what happened with the Withered? Well, like, how did you fight the Withered? Who's behind the Withered? And I can't tell you because the lease on the server expired and somebody else bought it first and we lost everything. And I heard this collective groan of agony on the other side of your computer monitors, and it was heartbreaking. We lost everything. We lost the Academy, we lost Matavia, we lost Bay Malay, everything that we had worked on for so long and made sort of our home there, gone. And so I said, well crap, I don't want to give up on this story though, because it's such a good story. And so my friend goes, one of my other friends, who had just started to play a little bit, Beethan Ainsley, he said, well, I can make a server for us to host that nobody else can like buy it or wipe it out or whatever. I'll make another one. And so I said, awesome, but I kind of want to continue the story. Let me figure out how we can continue the story. And what happened in story was the Withered found some sort of uber powerful magic and basically rewrote the entire world, which I thought was pretty clever. And we're still developing the story. I don't think this story's ever going to end. But that fight, the whole Chronicles of the Academy story, with the invasion and the invasion of the Sundered, and the death of Leroy Frazier, and the betrayal of Hunting for Aces as Lord Sundaris, was pretty much the epitome and the climax of that story as it stands right now. And it was, like I said, the most personally invested I'd ever been in any story in any fictional medium up to that point. I mean, more so than Lord of the Rings, or Redwall, or The Wheel of Time, or Skyrim, or the Avengers movies, or anything ever. This was the most emotionally invested I've been in a story. And you can probably see why. I hope you can see why. Because it was so absolutely cool what they pulled off and they managed to keep from me for so long. Because I fully admit, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I did not believe that Hunting for Aces was behind the Sundered attacks. I believed him when he said that he didn't know, which added so much more to the mystery and the sense of epicness about the whole thing. But what we're doing now is we're kind of there's some problems with Beethan Ainsley's server right now. He's having some problems keeping it up. So if he can get it up, then that's good. If he can't, then I'll start up a server of my own, maybe, and have the Withered rewrite the whole world again. And who knows? Maybe if you guys are interested, maybe if you're interested in getting on this action and are willing to play by our rules, I will open up. I'll give you the server IP and open up a spot for you and whitelist you and see if you wanna get in on the Chronicles of the Heroes Academy. But that was a a very long story about a very cool moment, a very cool couple of months actually, that I had with my friends in Minecraft. Those were the Chronicles of the Heroes Academy. Thanks for watching.